Frederick Charles Krueger, referred to as Freddy Kreguer and Fred Krueger, is a serial killer and the main antagonist of the original A Nightmare on Elm Street film series. A family man on the surface, Krueger was actually the serial killer known as the Springwood Slasher. When he was caught and subsequently released on a technicality, the parents of his victims tracked him to the boiler room of the power plant he once worked at and burned him alive. Krueger was offered the chance to continue after his physical death, becoming a dream demon that could enter his victims' dreams and kill them in the dream world, which would thus cause their death in the physical world and absorb their souls afterwards. As revenge upon the people who burned him to death, he targeted those people's children, who were obviously older than most or all of his pre-death victims. He is portrayed in the original film series by Robert Englund. He was briefly portrayed by Kane Hodder in Jason Goes to Hell. Amanda Krueger, a nun who worked in the Hathaway House, an asylum for the criminally insane, was accidentally locked in a room where 100 maniacs were housed. They attacked and raped her repeatedly until she was found barely alive and ultimately pregnant. In September 1942, she gave birth to a boy named Frederick Charles Krueger, who was placed with an abusive alcoholic named Mr. Underwood. While in elementary school, Freddy killed the class hamster and was bullied for being the son of 100 maniacs. During his teenage years, he would cut himself with a shaving razor for pleasure. He used the same razor to kill Mr. Underwood when he was beating him as revenge for all the times he abused him. As an adult, Freddy worked at the local power plant and raised a daughter with his loving wife. However, behind the peaceful facade lay in his own twisted heart a seething and horrific desire for vengeance and retribution for what hell Springwood had inflicted onto him. Targeting the children of his former classmates now turned the populace of Springwood, Freddy's MO was to take his victims to his workplace's boiler room. He created a glove with fish knives on the fingers, and as he kidnapped children, he mangled and tortured them with it. With their remains thrown and spread throughout the town, his acts earned him a reputation as a serial killer named the Springwood Slasher. He killed around 20 children before he was arrested. However, because the arrest warrant was signed in the wrong place and the judge drunk at the time of the proceeding, Krueger was released. The townsfolk were furious and took the law in their own hands. They cornered him in his lair and doused him in gasoline and set him on fire. While the building was burning, Freddy was approached by dream demons. Krueger took the offer from dream demons to continue his killing spree. He was allowed to roam the dream world, where any damage he inflicted would cause death in the physical world. In A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy invaded the nightmares of Tina Gray, Nancy Thompson, Rod Lane, and Glenn Lance. Tina became his first post-death victim when he slashed her across the chest with his clawed glove, which did the same amount of damage to her in the physical world, and throwing her and dragging her around the room, killing her. Rod Lane was accused of killing Tina and was arrested. Freddy hung him with sheets on his bed in his cell, making it appear as though he hung himself. Freddy kept stalking Nancy, who devised a plan with her boyfriend Glenn Lance to capture him. That night, however, Glenn fell asleep and Freddy pulled him into the bed and shot him upward in a fountain of blood. Nancy managed to pull him into the real world and set him on fire, but he killed Nancy's mother, Marge Thompson, by burning her to death. Nancy confronted Freddy a final time and turned her back on him, draining him of all his powers and destroying him. In the end, he appears to trap Nancy in a dream world, where she is trapped in a red and green striped car with Tina, Glenn, and Rod driving away. In A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, Freddy was unable to operate in his usual way, so he appeared in the nightmares of Jesse Walsh, who moved into Nancy's house 5 years after she defeated Freddy. He manipulated him and made him pick up his clawed glove, and would often possess him to kill his victims, which would briefly transform his body into Freddy's. Interestingly enough, whenever Freddy appeared, he was not wearing his clawed glove. Instead, knives were protruding from his fingers. In this method, Freddy attempted but failed to kill Jesse's sister, killed Schneider, Jesse's coach who was always punishing him, and his friend Ron Grady. He then proceeded to kill 7 guests at Lisa Weber's party before Lisa got through to Jesse, who was able to fight Freddy from the inside, weakening him and using his power to set Freddy on fire, burning him and releasing Jesse unharmed. However, Freddy apparently returned to attack people in their nightmares, attacking Jesse and Lisa on the bus. Whether or not this was a dream sequence is unknown. In A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, Freddy has killed all the children of the people who burned him to death, particularly those whose parents were responsible for his death, in their nightmares making it appear as though they were committing suicide, except Christian Parker, who possesses the power to pull people into her dreams. Roland Kincaid, Taryn White, Joey Crusoe, Bill Anderson, Jennifer Caulfield, and Will Stanton, all of whom were committed to Weston Hills Asylum. Freddy killed Philip and Jennifer, making their deaths appear as suicides. Hypnocil was prescribed to them at the request of Nancy, who now works at Weston Hills, and Neil Gordon. Unfortunately, during group hypnosis, Joey was captured by Freddy and hung above a fiery pit in the physical world, putting him in a coma. Nancy and the Dream Warriors, Christian, Kincaid, Taryn, and Will, all of whom have powers in their dreams, fought Freddy, but he was able to kill Taryn and Will. It is revealed that Freddy takes the souls of his victims in order to gain more power. When Nancy's father, Donald Thompson, and Neil attempt to bury Freddy's bones, he took control of them and impaled Donald on a spike. He then tricked Nancy and stabbed her to death, but she was able to use his glove against him in one last attempt to subdue him, before she died. Meanwhile, Neil was able to bury Freddy's bones and throw holy water and a crucifix on them, causing them to disappear. In A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, Freddy managed to resurrect himself during a dream by Kincaid, involving Kincaid's dog, Jason, digging him up. He stabbed Kincaid dead and drowned Joey. When Christian's mother gave her sleeping pills, Freddy threw her into the furnace. But as Freddy took her soul, she transferred her power to Alice Johnson. Freddy used Alice to get more victims who are not from Elm Street by having her unintentionally pull them into the dream world, and then him killing them. In this way, Freddy killed Sheila, making it appear as an asthma attack, and Alice's brother, Rick. He later killed Debbie before Alice and her boyfriend Dan Jordan fought him, and Alice used a shard of stained glass window to reflect Freddy's evil back at him, causing the souls of his victims to tear him apart, destroying him and releasing them from him. In A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, Freddy was reborn through the spirit of Amanda Krueger, and began using Alice's dream power to pull more victims into his dream world, and tried to control her unborn son, Jacob's soul, to enable him to live in Jacob's dream world forever. He killed Dan, Greta Gibson, and fed Jacob with their souls, in order to turn him into a pure evil. Realizing this, Alice tried to find Amanda to bring Freddy back to hell. Later, he kills one of Alice's best friends, Mark Gray, before Alice could defeat him. After Mark's death, Alice calls her other friend, Yvonne, who survived from another one of Freddy's attacks, to release Amanda's soul, and she enabled Jacob to use his power on Freddy to revert him back into an infant, where Amanda absorbed him. He was last seen attempting to claw his way out. In Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, Freddy killed all the children and teens of Springwood, except John Doe, whom he made forget about his past and sent him in the outside world, so he could use him to get to his daughter, who is now called Maggie Burrows, whom he intended to use to spread his influence outside Springwood. He also kept the adults of Springwood in mass psychosis. When three troubled teens named Carlos, Spencer, and Tracy traveled with John and Maggie to Springwood and entered the house in Elm Street, Freddy killed Carlos and Spencer. John believed himself to be Freddy's son, but Freddy killed him by making him fall onto spikes. By this time, Freddy was so powerful that no one except Maggie, Tracy, and Doc remembered Carlos, Spencer, or John, as they were erased from everyone's memories. Once Maggie figured out that she was Freddy's daughter, and Doc figured out that Freddy could be pulled out of the dream world, and subsequently killed, Maggie entered the dream world and pulled Freddy out. There, she inflicted several injuries on him before stabbing him with his own clawed glove and sticking him with a pipe bomb, which blew Freddy to bits and released the dream demons that gave him his power. However, while Freddy was dead and in hell, he is unable to leave as everyone else does not know of his existence, and therefore cannot fear him. This allows Springwood 4 years of peace. After his death, Freddy was stuck in hell, unable to return to either the dream world or the physical world, Because no non-adults remembered him and therefore were not afraid of him, those who made contact with them were locked in Weston Hills to avoid infecting the others, and given Hypnosil to prevent them from dreaming. However, in Freddy vs. Jason, Freddy discovered Jason Voorhees, another immortal serial killer who had also been killed and sent to hell. At the conclusion that Jason goes to hell the final Friday, Freddy pulled Jason's mask into hell after his death. By disguising himself as Jason's mother, Miss Voorhees, he was able to bring Jason back to life to spread fear, so people would think he was back. Eventually, Freddy was able to return when enough fear was spread across Springwood. But the one thing Freddy hadn't counted on was that Jason wouldn't stop killing, stealing one of Freddy's victims from him. However, he did manage to kill Mark Davis. When Laurie Campbell, Will Rollins, Kia Watterson, Charlie Linderman, Bill Freeberg, and Deputy Scott Stubbs went to Weston Hills to get Hypnosil, Freddy possessed Freeberg, who was high, to inject Jason with a tranquilizer, though Jason killed Freeberg in the process. Freddy attacked Jason inside his dream, but was unable to kill him. However, he immediately succeeded in drowning him, until Jason woke up. Laurie and the others were currently taking Jason to Crystal Lake to give him a home field advantage for a fight with Freddy. Eventually, Laurie pulled Freddy out of the dream world, and he fought Jason. Initially, the fight worked more in Freddy's favor, as his agility was enough to overpower the much slower and stronger Jason. Jason, however, soon gained the advantage until Freddy cut off his fingers, took his machete, and inflicted several injuries on him before Laurie sent them both on fire, causing an explosion that sent them flying into Crystal Lake. Before the explosion, Jason pulled off Freddy's arm. Freddy survived and tried to kill Laurie and Will, but was stabbed by Jason using his own severed arm, and Laurie decapitated him with Jason's machete. Afterwards, Jason walks out of Crystal Lake, holding Freddy's head. It looks as if Jason has won the battle, but Freddy's head winks at the camera, followed by his laughter as the screen goes black. So, it appears Freddy has survived, and will continue to kill another day.